I still remember the exact moment I first saw her. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late spring, and I was standing in the produce section of a grocery store, holding a cantaloupe like I had any idea what I was doing with it. I was 22, fresh out of college, working my first real job, and honestly, I was just trying to figure out how to be an adult who didn't eat ramen every night. Then she walked past me, and I swear, everything slowed down. Not in some cheesy movie way, but in that way where you suddenly become aware of your own heartbeat. She had this presence about her, this confidence that filled the space around her. She was wearing a simple sundress, nothing fancy, but the way she moved through the aisles, the way she examined the tomatoes with this thoughtful expression, like she actually cared about picking the right ones. It was mesmerizing. I caught myself staring. And then she looked up. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds. But in those 2 seconds, something shifted inside me. She smiled, just a slight curve of her lips, and went back to her shopping. That smile stayed with me for days. Her name was Catherine, though I didn't learn that until weeks later. And I was Ryan, just a kid really, at least compared to her. She was 48 years old, though I didn't know that either at first. All I knew was that I couldn't stop thinking about the woman from the grocery store. I started going back to that same store, same time, hoping I'd see her again. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't help myself. There was something about her that pulled at me, something I couldn't name. It wasn't just attraction, though God knows I was attracted to her. It was deeper than that. It was like she had unlocked something in me just by existing in the same space. The third week, I saw her again. This time I was in the coffee aisle, pretending to be very interested in the difference between French roast and Italian roast, when she appeared at the end of the aisle. She was wearing jeans and a white blouse, her hair pulled back, and she looked, I don't even have the words, beautiful doesn't cover it. It was something about the way she carried herself, like she knew exactly who she was and didn't apologize for it. This time, I didn't just stare. I gathered every ounce of courage I had and walked up to her. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cracking slightly like I was 15 again. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I've been trying to figure out how to pick a good melon for weeks now. And I saw you the other day, and you seemed like you really knew what you were doing with produce." It was the dumbest line I'd ever delivered, but she laughed. Actually laughed, this warm, genuine sound that made my chest feel tight. "That's quite possibly the most creative approach I've heard in a while," she said, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Most guys just ask for directions to the beer aisle." "I'm not most guys," I said, surprising myself with the boldness. "No," she said, studying me with those incredible eyes. "I don't think you are." We stood there in the coffee aisle for 45 minutes, just talking. She told me about the importance of smelling the stem end of a melon, checking for sweetness. I told her about my new job at an architecture firm, how I was designing parking garages and dreaming of buildings that would touch the sky. She didn't talk down to me or treat me like a kid. She listened like what I had to say actually mattered. Before we parted ways, she wrote her number on the back of a receipt. "In case you need more produce advice," she said with that same slight smile that had haunted me for weeks. I texted her that night. We met for coffee 3 days later. That's when I learned she was 48. She told me straight away, like she wanted to give me an out before things went any further. She'd been married once, divorced for 5 years, had a daughter in college. She worked as an art director for an advertising agency. She loved old jazz records and hated action movies. She could quote poetry from memory and made the best scrambled eggs I'd ever tasted. And I was completely, utterly captivated. I wish I could say the age difference didn't matter, but that would be a lie. It mattered to everyone else. My friends didn't understand it. My mom nearly had a heart attack when I mentioned I was seeing someone. Catherine's friends were skeptical, worried she was having some kind of crisis. The world had opinions about us before we even figured out what we were to each other. But when we were alone, none of that existed. When we were together, it was just us, two people who had somehow found each other in a grocery store on a random Tuesday. Our first real date was at this small Italian restaurant downtown. I was so nervous I knocked over a glass of water within 5 minutes of sitting down. Catherine just laughed and helped me mop it up with napkins, her hand briefly touching mine, and that simple contact sent electricity through my entire body. We talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. She told me about her marriage, how it had died slowly, not with big fights, but with the gradual realization that she and her ex-husband had become strangers living in the same house. She talked about rediscovering herself after the divorce, learning to be alone and actually enjoying it. I told her things I'd never told anyone, about feeling lost despite having everything supposedly figured out, about the pressure to have it all together at 22 when I still felt like I was playing dress-up in grown-up clothes, about dreams that felt too big to speak out loud. She didn't judge. She didn't offer advice I didn't ask for. She just listened, really listened, in a way I'd never experienced before. When she drove me home that night, I'd taken the bus to the restaurant because my car was in the shop. She walked me to my apartment door. We stood there in the dim hallway light, and I could feel the tension between us, thick and electric. I had a really good time tonight, I said, suddenly feeling shy. So did I, she said softly. Then, after a pause, Ryan, you should know, I'm not sure this is a good idea. You're so young. You have your whole life ahead of you. I don't want to be something you regret. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I knew with absolute certainty that whatever this was between us, I would never regret it. Catherine, I said, I've never felt more alive than I do when I'm with you. I don't care about the numbers. I care about this. About us. She searched my face for a long moment. Then slowly, carefully, she leaned in and kissed me. It was soft and gentle and absolutely perfect, and in that moment, I understood what all those love songs were actually about. From that night on, we were inseparable. We fell into this rhythm together, this beautiful dance of discovery. She introduced me to her world, art galleries and poetry readings, Sunday morning farmers markets, late-night conversations over wine about philosophy and meaning and what it means to truly live. I introduced her to mine, spontaneous road trips with no destination in mind, terrible karaoke nights where we were always the worst singers in the bar, lazy afternoons where we'd build blanket forts in her living room and watch old movies. The age gap that everyone else saw as a problem became irrelevant to us. Yes, we came from different generations. Yes, our life experiences were vastly different, but that's what made it rich. She taught me about patience, about really tasting your food instead of just eating it, about the importance of sitting still sometimes and just being present. I reminded her how to be playful, how to take risks, how to see the world with wonder instead of cynicism. But it wasn't always easy. The looks we got when we were out together, I learned to ignore them, mostly, but they stung. The way the waitress would assume we weren't together and bring separate checks. The way people would look at Catherine with judgment, like she was doing something wrong by being with me. The worst was when her daughter came home from college for winter break. Emma was my age, and the look on her face when she met me was pure shock mixed with disgust. She pulled Catherine into the kitchen, and even though I couldn't hear the words, I could hear the tone. Angry, protective, hurt. Catherine came back with tears in her eyes, but she held my hand and didn't let go. She'll come around, Catherine said, but her voice was shaking. She just needs time. That night, lying in her bed with her curled against my chest, she cried. Really cried, in a way that broke my heart. Maybe everyone's right, she whispered. Maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe I'm stealing your youth. I held her tighter. You're not stealing anything. I'm giving it freely. Catherine, you're not holding me back from living my life. You're teaching me how to actually live it. But the doubts crept in for both of us. Were we being foolish? Was this real love, or just some kind of fantasy we'd built together? Could this actually work long-term? Or were we just postponing the inevitable heartbreak? Things came to a head about 6 months in. I got offered a promotion at work. one that came with significantly more responsibility and better pay. My boss took me out to celebrate, and over drinks, he mentioned how impressed he was with my maturity, how most guys my age were still figuring things out, but I seemed to have my head on straight. And then he said, almost casually, "You should enjoy this time, Ryan. Your 20s are for exploring, for making mistakes, for not being tied down. Trust me, you don't want to look back and realize you missed out on being young." I went home that night and found Catherine cooking dinner, humming along to some old Billie Holiday record, and my boss's words echoed in my head. Was I missing out? Was I throwing away my youth by being with her? She turned and saw my face, and she knew immediately something was wrong. We sat down, and I told her everything. The promotion, the conversation with my boss, the doubts that were suddenly consuming me. "Do you want to leave?" she asked quietly. "No," I said immediately. "God, no. But what if everyone's right? What if we're making a mistake?" She was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "Ryan, I can't promise you this will last forever. I can't promise you that being with me is the right choice. All I can promise you is that what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've felt in years. Maybe ever. But if you need to go, if you need to explore and figure out what you want, I understand. I won't hold you back." And that's when it hit me. This incredible, beautiful, mature woman was willing to let me go because she loved me enough to want what was best for me, even if it hurt her. In that moment, I realized that real love isn't about holding on tight. It's about giving someone the freedom to choose you every single day. "I don't want to be anywhere else," I said. "I don't want anyone else. Catherine, you're not preventing me from living my life. You are my life." We made love that night, and it was different from all the times before. It was deeper, more intentional, like we were making promises with our bodies that we couldn't quite put into words. Every touch was a declaration. Every kiss was a commitment. The months that followed weren't magically easier. Emma remained distant, though she eventually stopped being openly hostile. My friends still didn't really get it, though they stopped making jokes at Catherine's expense after I made it clear that wasn't acceptable. Catherine's ex-husband, who had been indifferent about her dating life, suddenly had opinions when he found out about my age. But we built something real together. We built a life, not the one other people expected or approved of, but one that was authentically ours. Catherine taught me about wine and how to really listen to music, about the difference between hearing and truly listening. She showed me that confidence isn't about having all the answers. It's about being comfortable with the questions. She taught me that love isn't a feeling that just happens to you. It's a choice you make every single day. I taught her, or maybe reminded her, that it's okay to be silly sometimes, that not everything has to be so serious. I introduced her to my love of sketching, and we'd spend Sunday afternoons in the park, both drawing the same scene and comparing our different perspectives. I showed her that adventure doesn't have to be big and dramatic. Sometimes it's just taking a different route home or trying a restaurant you've never been to before. We challenged each other. She pushed me to be better at my work, to not settle for good enough when I could be great. I pushed her to take risks, to submit her artwork to galleries, even though she was terrified of rejection. And yes, there were moments when the age difference felt real. When she'd reference a cultural touchstone from before I was born, and I'd have no idea what she was talking about. When my friends would invite me to some club, and I'd know Catherine wouldn't be interested. When she'd worry about growing older while I was still so young. But those moments didn't define us. What defined us was the way we'd stay up late talking about the universe and our place in it. The way she'd bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings, knowing exactly how I liked it. The way I'd leave little notes around her apartment, tucked into books and taped to mirrors, just to make her smile. The way we fit together, like two puzzle pieces that shouldn't match, but somehow did. One night, about a year into our relationship, we were lying in bed after making love, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing patterns on her arm. Out of nowhere, she said, "Do you ever think about the future? Like, really think about it?" "All the time," I admitted. What do you see when you think about it? She was quiet for a moment. I see us. I see this. I see building something together that's real and lasting. But then I get scared because I'm almost 50, Ryan. I'm not going to give you children. I'm not going to be young forever. What if one day you wake up and realize you want something I can't give you? I turned so I could look at her face. Catherine, I don't love you because of your age or in spite of it. I love you because you're you. Because you make me laugh and you challenge me and you see me in a way no one else ever has. Because when I think about my future, every version of it that makes me happy has you in it. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. And I meant it. This wasn't some young guy's infatuation with an older woman. This wasn't a phase or a rebellion or whatever people want to call it. This was real, actual, messy, beautiful, complicated love. We're still together now, 3 years later. I'm 25 and she's 51, and I still get butterflies when I see her. We've moved in together, much to the continued dismay of several people in our lives. Emma has come around, slowly but surely. She even told me a few months ago that she'd never seen her mom this happy, and if I ever hurt her, she'd kill me. I appreciated the honesty. My mom has accepted it, though I think she's still holding out hope that I'll grow out of it. My friends have mostly stopped commenting on it, though I've lost a few along the way who couldn't understand. But here's what I've learned. Love doesn't follow the rules we think it should. It doesn't care about what's appropriate or expected or socially acceptable. Real love is rare and precious, and when you find it, you hold on to it, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Every glance from Catherine still feels like a secret invitation. An invitation to see the world differently, to love deeply, to live fully. She's taught me that age is just a number, but wisdom is earned. That passion doesn't diminish with years, it deepens. That the best relationships aren't the ones that look right on paper. They're the ones that feel right in your soul. People still stare sometimes when we're out together. People still make assumptions. But I don't care anymore. Let them think what they want. They don't see what we have behind closed doors. They don't see the way she looks at me when I walk through the door after work. They don't hear our late-night conversations about dreams and fears and everything in between. They don't feel the electricity that still sparks between us every time we touch. I'm not saying it's always easy. There are still challenges. There are still moments of doubt, still whispers of judgment from the world around us. But what relationship doesn't have challenges? At least ours are honest. At least we chose each other with full knowledge of what we were getting into. Catherine once told me that the best love stories aren't the ones without obstacles. They're the ones where two people decide that what they have is worth fighting for. We fight for this every day, not against each other, but against a world that wants to tell us we're wrong. And you know what? We're winning. Because at the end of the day, when I'm lying next to her, holding her close, feeling her heart beat against mine, I know with absolute certainty that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Not in spite of our age difference, not because of it, but simply because she's the person I choose and she chooses me right back. She was 48 and I was 22 when we met. Now she's 51 and I'm 25. And if I'm lucky enough, one day she'll be 71 and I'll be 45, still looking at her like she hung the moon, still grateful for that Tuesday afternoon in a grocery store when our eyes met and changed everything. True love has no age. It has no timeline. It has no rules. It just is. And what Catherine and I have, it just is. And it's more than I ever dreamed possible. So let me ask you something. Do you believe that age can really stand in the way of true love? Have you ever felt that connection with someone unexpected? Someone the world told you wasn't right for you? I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you these real stories of love that prove age is nothing but a number. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because I post new stories every single day. Stories about real people, real connections, and real love that defies expectations. Remember, the heart wants what it wants, and sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that don't follow the script. I'll see you tomorrow with another story that proves love has no boundaries. Until then, keep believing in love, no matter what form it takes.